I've made an observation, and I'm just curious how you're viewing this, and I kinda, I think I kinda asked you the same before, but I'm still curious to hear more about it, if that's okay.
Yeah, sure.
um, what I really notice is that it feels like the energies in the body, like the conditionings, they're, in my experience at least, it really feels like the there are like, it's almost like there are like lessons, um, like your karma is like full of lessons, and kind of get like you will kind of be put in in situations that will trigger those energies, and for you it's almost seemingly like for you to learn of those situations so you can clear up that energy. For example, I had like I suddenly started having like a problem in my house with with a smell, with a certain smell, and it was so bad, and I've a really sensitive nose, and I at one time I just decided to move out. And what happened when I found a new apartment, which was way better, um, within like 2 months or something, I started having like a smell problem again in that apartment, and I got so it triggered a lot of hopelessness in me, and a lot of yeah, especially hopelessness. And I solved that problem, and what happened, like again, like 1 2 months later, a new problem, smell problem, started arising, and I got so hopeless about it, and so because I didn't feel I had like I see you laughing in the playback. Um, and and it triggered so much hopelessness in me, and because I didn't like, I had like this emotional stuff that I was already dealing with that was really difficult, and this added on top of that, I didn't have like a safe home where I could like deal with it. It felt like really hopeless, and at one time I even decided to because I couldn't really care for myself anymore, because my emotional traumas and stuff like that were getting so intense that I decided to go home to my parents for a while. And now seemingly what's happening is I have a tendency to just give up. Like if something is annoying, a conversation or whatever, I have this really big tendency to just run from it.
Mm.
And now it's really, this situation is really triggering. I still have that tendency, but what's becoming more clear, a new energy is shining through, and that wants me to fight for it. It wants me to handle it, like handle it with my, like my living, I don't know how to call it, like my house was, to my house
Mm.
was, and and that's what's been happening the past few months. That every time like I'm fighting for it, and they're figuring it out, trying to help me, and but they're still not quite having a solution for me, and every time there's still also this tendency that's shining through that wants me to give up.
Mm.
But then it's almost like the universe is telling me you have to fight for the energy. The universe is telling me to fight.
They're like, if you don't fight for it, we're going to
Yeah.
make sure that dog shit is in your walls. Rather than a dying rat, it's going to be dog shit, just all placed strategically around.
That's funny, but in a way, kind of yes. In a way, I know you're being a little bit ironic, but in a way, kind of like that, because how it feels is like it still feels genuinely like I'm running from it. And if I run now from it, if something similar happens in my life again, then I still won't be prepared to fight for my stance.
Yeah. I have a few things to say to that. Firstly, when I was in India years ago, I was staying in an apartment. And I've told this story many times. I don't know if you heard it. And they decided to do construction on the apartment, but for some reason they only did construction from like about 11 at night till about 11 in the morning. And then sometimes during the day they would do it, but I presume mostly it was too hot during the day, so it was more like 10, 11 at night it would start. And they one time they built a wall. I was out during the day and they built a wall across the door. So I went back at like 10 o'clock at night and there was just no door. And I was just like, where? How do I get into my apartment? But anyway, that was just a side story. But anyway, one day it was in the afternoon and I went for a sleep, and they started. Most of the time, I think in the day they didn't do it so much, but they started, and I just was like, oh, I can't do it this time. I can't sleep through it. It was like the jackhammer. It was like, I was like, I really can't do it. This is just too much. They, like either through my earplugs, it felt like the floor was vibrating, and I just felt like I couldn't handle that. And so I got my stuff, and I was like, I'm going to go to a cafe, and I opened my front door, and because I felt, because I've fed the dogs, there was 3 dogs asleep outside of my apartment, so they're right next to these jackhammers, they're right next to all these builders, and they're all like and dogs have, I think it's something like 10 times the hearing that we do.
Oh, no way.
And they still manage to sleep, and I felt like that was like a really nice lesson. In the sense that we have all these limitations on our minds of what we can accept and what we can't accept. And I'm not saying that we go to extreme of it and that you have to accept smell. I think it's really beautiful that you fight as well to change it. But it's just seeing the nature of the mind. Like a dog who doesn't have identification and doesn't have the nature to think about something else that could be. It just is like full force sound and sleeps. And so and it doesn't mean, I'm not like making any big statements here saying that we have to accept all these things. It's just the nature of what the mind does, because we have this ability to compare of what could be and what was and what has to be. We can sometimes get too attached to it and too attached to the outcomes, and too much in the belief that freedom comes from the flow of life. It also doesn't mean that you don't do things, because if you don't do things, then you're going to end up with nothing, which could be okay, but it's quite hard to exist in Northern Europe without anything. But the illusion is that freedom comes in time. Even with this, even when you're like analyzing yourself and you're using it as an exploration to go deeper in yourself, there's still, it's somewhere in you, and I might be wrong, that might not be happening there. There's an assumption, maybe, which makes it more intense, that freedom comes from there not being a smell, or freedom comes from standing up from yourself, or freedom comes from going through my karma. And that's all nice ideas. I'm all pro like being more balanced and seeing through our karma. But in the end, the freedom that you're really looking for is always in the present moment. It's always in what's happening, like the details of what's happening. And we can get so sucked into what we're thinking, even in the deconstruction of ourselves, like so sucked into what I need to be like, what I'm going to be like, what I should be like, fixing my karma. And in the end, it's really the sensations right here, right now, the bum on the seat. I have this light in front of me, the wind, the rain, the computer, the sound of your voice. It's all here right now. I'm free in that.
I kind of feel like a lot of times that life is like you have like these big desires and these big wants, and it's almost like it's destined to fail in a way. It's like life is kind of like directing you to you feel like all the love and your happiness is in all those things, and it almost, especially the things you want the most, is a lot of times there's the most attachment in it, and maybe even the most trauma is in those spaces. For example, like people who have like really bad attachments, they crave relationships really bad. And it's almost, in my experience, almost like you kind of burn through it, like this big desire, like you kind of burn through it, and at one point you naturally stop caring that much. It becomes like way more balanced. And the
Mm.
funny thing is, when it becomes more balanced, then it's almost like life gives you those things in a
Mm.
way.
Mm.
But that's just my experience. I'm not saying that's true, but I feel strongly about it though.
Mm.
It's yeah.
And that's what you've got to go on in a way, even though there is no you in the end, there is only this moment.
Yeah.
Like you have to follow what your experience is. But
Yeah.
it's just coming back to what is free now in your experience hands. That's a
Yeah.
direct question. What is, like, I'm asking you, like, what is free now?
I I can't I can't tell it. It's like I don't I yeah, I don't know.
What to who's listening to my voice?
So there are two things. They're like this like I can answer that logically, like going to, and then I'm almost answering like from a sensation, but that's not it. It's just an appearance, and then you just then
So what's
then
your
there's like
experience? What's your experience now? Like where who is listening in your direct experience now?
I can't tell that. I can't really
Can you
uh
can you find the place?
no. I can't make a place. That's the yeah. But I can't grasp that in a way. I can't
Mm-hmm.
contract around that spot. It's just like this. Yeah.
Mm.
But still it has to shine through more, and it's not it's getting more and more obvious, but there's seemingly there's still
And how big in this moment do you feel? Like how big or small? Like where do you feel like
I
the
I
experiencer is?
I can't tell. I can't tell. I still have a center point, like there's still, but
And
it's
where's the center point?
oh that's in the I don't know, they're like a cloud of sensations, but it's getting thinner and thinner.
Hmm. And where is that, in the head or in the heart or undefinable?
If I go into thought, I can say, oh, it's yeah, in my head or in my body, but just in my default state now, there's just a cloud and it's not really anywhere.
Yeah. So there is this cloud which feels like it's a location even though you can't find it.
Yeah.
And then there is a consciousness that is, like, you could say, all around this or undefinable. There is something that knows that cloud, like that cloud isn't knowing. And that which knows this is undefinable.
Mm.
Like, so the hearing of my voice happens, and maybe there is a little bit of a cloud in which that disappears into. But
Yeah.
the hearing of the voice, the consciousness of the rain outside or the feeling of the seat,
Mm-hmm.
it's so instantaneous and cannot be found.
Yeah.
It's this massive space in which everything is appearing in. So you have this cloud that's appearing inside something that's infinite. So the person is like a vessel that's appearing in something which is timeless and spaceless, and you could say still and in movement. And that cloud, there's nothing wrong with that cloud. Like, so there is that cloud, and that person's been on the fast and feels like it's got to fix its karma, and there's nothing wrong or right with that. That's something that's happening in the person.
Mm-hmm.
But the whole time that's happening, there is this massive, infinite space around it
Mm.
in
Yeah.
which freedom arises. Like, that's what's always free.
Mm.
And that's the most important teaching to me.
Yeah.
Like that, or the most important thing is that that is the freedom. And the person keeps wanting to go back to itself.
Yeah.
Me. But what else is there?
Yeah. It's I remember like when I got my first glimpses and my meditation experiences, I had like a period that was like heavily really seeking inside of my head. It was
Yeah.
like it was so intense, and it was 24/7. It was like I'm finding a spot, and every time I knew I landed on the spot, I knew that wasn't it. I was looking, and at some point, since I don't know if it's like months or weeks or whatever, that just stopped. It was just a giving up. So I won't find myself, but still this dissolving of this seemingly center point is still seemingly continuing. But there is more like a resting in that space, more and more like
yeah, who you are, that stillness is deep rest. It's not a personal thing, but it is a deep rest, and it's totally beyond you. Like on the human level, like anything that appears, like the thoughts, the feelings, the ideas that are moving in time.
I'm so excited for this. I find this as well really beautiful, and I'm really excited to for this thing. Yeah, for this. Yeah, I don't know how to say that. I hope you know what I mean.
Yeah. Yeah, nice.
There was like one person I was watching a video, and he told me like there's no one or no self to be enlightened. And when I heard that, it's like my whole body. You have this also sometimes. So you tell me, but for me, that hearing that line, my whole body just, yeah, completely lit up.
Yeah,
It felt
nice.
so beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah, when that's really heard, it is.
Yeah.
Nice.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks, Hans, for calling in.
Thank you as
Yeah,
well.
thanks.
Have a nice stream and a nice evening.
Danke.
Goodbye.
Bye.